Welcome to the annual general meeting. Please welcome Tom Spink, NNUH Chair.
Nice. Haven't had that before, that's lovely. Good afternoon, everybody. Very warm welcome to our annual general meeting. This is a really important day in the calendar of the Trust where we have a chance to share what we've been up to in the last 12 months during the 2023-24, but also give you some insight into what's coming up in the future. So it's a very important day, so thank you all for coming along. I should point out right at the start, as per some of the signs, this is being streamed via Teams, so it's been streamed and recorded, okay? So I've got to be on best behaviour. That helps people who couldn't make it today to join in via Teams and participate. Can I extend a really warm welcome to Councillor Stuart Dark, MBE, the Chair of Norfolk County Council. Stuart, welcome. Thank you. Stuart, one of Stuart's real passions is volunteering, and during this year, as his tenure as the chair, he's spending a lot of time focusing there, and therefore he's come to say a few words about the wonderful volunteering service that we undertake here at the Norfolk and Norwich. So welcome, Stuart. We've also got, in terms of the agenda, our CEO, no longer a new Chief Executive, been here for 7 months, Leslie Dwyer, in the front row. Leslie is going to share kind of update on what's happening the last 12 months and also speak a little bit about what's coming up in the future. We've also got our interim Chief Financial Officer, Liz Sanford, right in front of me. Liz will be talking about the numbers, okay, finances. I can't imagine for a minute you haven't seen the press, heard the news about the massive pressures that the NHS is under with the new Labour government, £20 billion hole, etc., etc. We've got a little part to play in trying to help that. So Liz will talk a bit about, from the Trust perspective, where we are with the finances. Really importantly, being a foundation trust, we have governors, and the governors are there to make sure that they represent the interests of the public and also the staff, and keeping the board and the non-executive directors on their toes. And I'm really, really pleased to have 2 governors here today who are going to share a little bit about the activities they undertake as governors at the Trust. So we'll cover that in a few minutes. Really importantly, there's masses of great work that gets underway in this hospital on any given day, but it's also a chance in these events to showcase some of the really, really good things that are happening. And we've got 2 presentations today from the clinical teams. One is the emergency department, where they have done an absolutely outstanding job in the last 12 months looking after patients coming in the front door. But also robotic surgery, colorectal cancer. We have just leading edge technology, but probably more importantly, leading edge skills and expertise. And we'll have a presentation on that as well later on. At the end of today's event, we will have a short video, which is sharing the Charity Champions Award run by the Norfolk and Norwich University Hospitals charity. Now, the charity plays a really, really important part for the Trust, helping support patients, but also supporting the staff. So it's really great they can contribute today as well. And then lastly, we have got time set aside on the agenda for any questions. Already some questions have come in from online, which we will endeavour to answer. The executive team, many of who are here today, will be up on stage with a roving microphone. So if you have any questions at all that you want to ask, please just write them down or keep in your mind. And at the end of the event, we'll have a chance, some time set aside to do our very best to answer the questions. Okay? Right, so with that, I want to introduce 2 of our hospital governors, Elaine Bailey and Chris Hind, and hand over. So please warm welcome to both Chris and to Elaine. Thank you.
Introducing hospital governors Elaine Bailey and Chris Hind.
Who wants the clicker?
Men can't multitask.
Oh, it's that one. Okay, to go forward. The one next to pink. Not that one. That one. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello everybody, as you may have guessed, I'm Chris and this is Elaine.
Hi.
So, Elaine, what does it mean to be a governor?
Thrown in at the deep end. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Just to add a bit of meat on the bones, I am the governor for North Norfolk. We have governor representation, as you're probably aware, across the whole of Norfolk. So I look after North Norfolk. So it's a big up for Cromer Hospital as well, who I represent, I hope, to good effect. Chris covers South.
I cover South Norfolk. We don't have a hospital yet, apart from this one here, which is in South Norfolk.
So moving on, so why did I become a governor, or why did I like to become a governor? I think probably it's fair to say that the NNN is part of my DNA. It paid my salary for many, many years, and it's also, we've had some lovely hellos in our family, and we've also had some goodbyes that the NNN have looked after for us. And across that time, I have been, without question, passionate about the care that every patient receives. So the governor role was kind of why I wanted to do this. It was very much around continuing to ensure that wherever possible, the patient got the best that they possibly could from the hospital. How about you?
But I guess our main duty is to hold the non-execs to account,
Yeah.
which is what we do in our meetings every month.
Yep.
We also have to approve the annual accounts and also help appoint senior positions. So we appointed Tom and Leslie. So we approve their appointments. I think we got that right. So that's part of our job. It's definitely too late now. But I think it's also, you know, if we go on to the next, why we wanted to become a governor, you've kind of alluded to how your interest from your previous life in healthcare.
Yep.
For me, it was really just wanting to give something back to the NHS. So my sort of journey started about 6 years ago when I was first diagnosed with genetic hemochromatosis, which is classed as a rare disease. I had to come up to the hospital every week for half an hour to give a pint of blood. So I was up here for over a year, and I saw what was going on. I thought I could do something to help here. So that gave me the motivation to get involved and try and make a difference. So that's really, so I joined the patient panel initially, and then I was elected as a public governor just over 4 years ago. So I'm in my second term. So we all have our own skills, which we can try and bring to bear when we're having governors' meetings in the boardroom.
Yep. And I think we are 2 of 23 governors. I think that's correct. And contrary to what you see here, one of the prerequisites is not that you have to be over 6 foot tall.
It helps.
We come with all different backgrounds, all
Different
different
skills.
perspectives, different skills, which we feel complement each other to best effect. And I hope the exec and the non-exec would agree with that as well. So, and going on from what I was saying before, our other focus is very much to be a link between the public and the trust. We are that link. We share what we hear from patients, and what patients share with us goes to the exec, and the exec then look into it and support it whenever's required. So that's the main priority for me, is very much around ensuring that we know our patients, we communicate with our patients, and we then communicate with the governors and with the exec.
So what things do you enjoy most about being a governor, Elaine?
Do you know what? I love just talking to people. Well, you can gather, can't you? I just love talking to people. And I love talking to people who inspire me. And this afternoon, I was inspired by the virtual ward team. This morning, I was at Cromer Hospital, and I was talking to a patient there, 89 years of age, very proud to be 89 years of age. And she talked me through all that she'd been through over her life and the support that she'd got from Cromer Hospital and from the NN Hospital. Truly inspiring. I have to say I'm inspired by the team that I see in front of me. The leadership team, I think, is excellent. I think we have a brilliant relationship. So it's all about that kind of being inspired. Sometimes we're all disappointed, but overall it is that inspirational effect that I get. And I hope, in my own small way, that my enthusiasm also inspires others.
And one of the things that I enjoy is actually getting on the wards and meeting staff and patients. And this is a photograph taken, I think it was earlier this year, when we visited microbiology just over the road. And it's fascinating to see the work that goes on here in research and behind the scenes, not just on the wards. So I find that aspect really exciting, and I think we're privileged to be able to do that.
You look very fetching.
In a white coat. Challenges. Parking. as always. I think that photograph must be taken early on a Sunday morning. But what would you say are the challenges for being a governor?
Well, actually, I think this photograph actually sort of exemplifies the challenges that I face. The hospital itself is huge. It's absolutely enormous. My responsibility is to support, hear from staff and patients. There's no way that I can hear from every member of staff, every patient. Finding my way around the hospital is bad enough. I can't find my way about a paper bag. So finding the way around the hospital is just so tricky. So that in itself is a challenge. It's a challenge to represent every single patient. I think it's also a challenge, and actually, if you look at the broader picture, you look at this sort of, if it's taken from a helicopter or a drone, we're kind of looking outside the hospital as well. And one of our responsibilities as governor is also to make sure that we're aware and we represent everything that's going on outside of the hospital. And there's a credible amount of change that's going on at the moment with integration of care, all hopefully very positive. But to get on board with that and to understand even an nth of that, I think is a challenge. And I think all the governors here would say exactly the same. So
yeah, I think
that's biggest to me.
one of the challenges we have, as you say, is actually representing people in our different areas. Yeah. And we can do that through primary care. So I've tried to engage with some of the primary care trusts in my neck of the woods. Yeah. Obviously, lots of challenges they've faced over the last 4 years. Yeah. But I think it's important we have a relationship and try and improve primary care as well as secondary care.
Yeah, absolutely. Primary care, community care, so many cares that all actually are beginning, I think, to integrate in a very positive way. And I know Leslie's hugely instrumental in developing all of that. So, and we're there as governors to support all of that. But we kind of need to understand it. And the way to understand it is just conversation by conversation.
And here is Cromer Hospital, represented on the left there. So I think, we've got to try and help the trust achieve its objectives. And I think talking to staff is very important, and we get the opportunity to do that regularly and to really sort of improve patient pathways and essentially support the board and execs to deliver better patient outcomes and quicker patient outcomes.
Yeah, just as a final thought, I know you all know the saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same, or the more it's the same. Sometimes you can be quite cynical in that approach. And I've been around the block a few times, so I've seen things change, and I've seen things come back round again as sort of maybe new innovations or whatever. But I think we're all happy with that, and actually we'll hear about some amazing innovations that are going on now. We're all happy with the change, but provided that with the change there has to be a constant. For me as a patient, there has to be a constant that I'm assured that I've got the best quality care provided by the best clinicians, physicians, nurses, pharmacists, OTs, physios, radiographers. So there has to be that constant. Now, Leslie talks about building on firm foundations. And I feel, we all feel, that the only way to build on firm foundations is that the cornerstone of that foundation is the patient voice. So if I can leave you with that, from my perspective, that's what governing is all about. It's all about ensuring that the patient voice is heard.
That's music to Sarah's ears, sat at the back there. Anyway, so thank you for listening, and hope you've now got a better idea of what we do occasionally. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Liz Sanford, Interim Chief Finance Officer.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for allowing me to have a slot on this afternoon's agenda. I'm going to do an overview of the financial position for 23-24. So that was the year that ended on the 31st of March this year. So these are the headlines. So you'll see that we achieved a break-even plan. We set a break-even plan, and we delivered that break-even plan. And that's what we're measured against by NHS England. In terms of delivering that break-even plan, we invested in some significant revenue investments, and as you'll see from those that are listed there, they really were targeted investments to focus on our key priority areas for the Trust, making sure that what resource that we had available was put to where we felt it was needed the most. So you can see we invested in elective care, waiting list reduction, we expanded our elective theatre capacity, We put in some additional medical staff in an ED, and Tom referred to the ED performance and how good that is, and that's supported by that additional medical staffing. We expanded our medical bed base, and we've also invested into the virtual ward. As well as those investments into the revenue side of our activity, we also invested £40 million in capital, and you can see that included just under £21 million worth of national programme funding in our estate, equipment and digital infrastructure. And I'll speak a bit more about that as we go through. So this is headed up 23-24 financial highlights. I think perhaps I would say key facts and figures. Some of them aren't quite the highlight we'd want. So total income for last year was £989 million. So we're now edging towards, I think we are this year, a £1 billion turnover as an organisation. So significant amount of income that we take. And unfortunately, we spent slightly over that in terms of delivering our plan last year. So just over the £1 billion on total expenditure. And 54% of that was on staff. And as you'll appreciate, our staff are our biggest cost to us. We reported a statutory deficit of 25 million. So that was, as I say, the reported position. We then do some technical adjustments on that to get to our reported surplus of £100,000. So that's, again, the measure that we're judged on by NHS England. In terms of that delivery, we delivered £16.8 million worth of efficiencies in delivering that plan. In terms of the balance sheet position, so it's called Statement of Financial Position, but probably more widely known as balance sheet. We had creditor days of 137 days, so we've improved from 22-23 in the speed in which we pay our creditors, which is good for those people waiting to be reimbursed for us. And also we improved in terms of our debtor days, so we actually got paid more rapidly than we did in 22-23 as well. We've got net assets held of £61 million, and that was a 77% decrease. That's a big decrease. Don't worry, we didn't sell everything off or lose anything. It's again a technical adjustment related to our wonderful PFI hospital. And then you'll see at the bottom the public dividend capital. That's quite a big increase, or 6% increase on that, which leaves us with public dividend capital of £345 million for the year. That is the money that is invested into us as the equity that we hold on behalf of us all as taxpayers. So just to talk about the capital investment is of interest to everybody here, I'm sure. So what did we do in 23-24? We got approval for our Diagnostic Assessment Centre, now renamed as a CDC. Hopefully you've seen it. It's going up behind the Quadram Institute. That was a major investment into that. And is due to open in February 25, so this financial year will be an amazing new complex when that's open, and we'll be able to treat so many more patients through that facility. We also continued our key investments in theatre capacity, so we completed work on our paediatric theatre complex that opened in January of last year, so this calendar year, last financial year. And we also continued work throughout the year on our NNUH, which opened quite recently. I think we had the official opening of that just last week. So that was all underway last year and as I say, opened this year. We've also done ongoing clinical equipment as part of that investment into the capital, and we've also started our work on our EPR system as well. So that will bring, that's across the 3 Norfolk and Waveney Acute Trusts, and will bring a single digital patient record system to the system. It'll be a major leap forward in terms of our digital capacity and capability. Finally, I'd like to thank Norfolk and Norwich Hospitals Charity there for the contribution they've made and supported us with some of those capital investments. You can see that they contributed £236,000 to providing additional equipment and environmental improvements. And as I say, we're extremely grateful for the support that the charity gave us last year and continues to give us. In terms of the governance, which I'm sure you're all interested in, hanging on my every word on this, I'm pleased to report, again, we had an external audit, issued an unqualified audit opinion on our financial statements. There are minimal changes that were made as we went through that audit process, presentational changes mainly to the accounts, and there were no specific representations requested in addition to the routine audit requests. Likewise, for the value for money assessment, so that's how well we are assessed to use our resources, they reported no significant weaknesses in our arrangements or in that particular area as well. However, they did note an ongoing risk in relation to our ability to deliver what is a challenging SIP plan in this current financial year. In terms of the audit, I'd like to take this opportunity just to thank my team for the professional way that they manage that audit every year. And again, we were in the first 3 to actually complete our audit and get the accounts laid before Parliament. So, as I say, I'd like to take that opportunity to thank my team for that.
Can you explain what SIP means, please?
Sorry, that's our cost improvement programme. I spoke earlier about efficiencies, the £16.8 million worth of efficiency. So that was what our programme was for last financial year, and it remains to be challenging for this financial year.
A review of the year from Professor Leslie Dwyer, Chief Executive.
Gosh, the person who follows me will just need to be a little bit mindful that unlike others, I'm not quite so tall, but often what happens is I move the microphones and then people forget to move them back. I'll try and remember. So as Tom said, I'm going to do a little look back and then a bit of a glimpse of a look forward. I'm not going to do lots of stats and different things like that. You'll see some of those in our annual report. This will just go through a loop, but I'll refer to that in a minute. So as Tom said, officially this is my first annual general meeting, but as many of you know, that isn't quite true. And I remember very well where I was sitting last year because it was the day before my official interview. I'd spent the day doing some stakeholder sessions and I thought, what a great opportunity while I'm here to come and listen in. And I remember that I listened to governors as well. Our lead governor, Erica, spoke, and it provided me with a whole range of context. But as I said, it was one of those experiences where you're almost just sitting there quietly and soaking it all in. Obviously, I got the job and that's why I'm here. But I'm sure, and many people say this, it has been a really, really difficult year. And I know that in the NHS we say that a lot. But coming out of COVID, the demand keeps coming and that we have staff that are working really, really hard. But I've also acknowledged that I haven't had the journey that many people have. As Tom said, I've only been here for 7 months. Carol, you mentioned around change, and change is a constant, and hopefully it is for the right reasons. But from a national perspective, it couldn't be a year of more change. We've had a change of government, but we've also had a change in the signposting about what the NHS needs to be doing. That's been from the new Secretary of State, but also through reviews and the recently published Darzi report, clearly stating that the NHS needs to change and work differently. We do agree with that, and I particularly do, because I see the enormous effort the staff put in every day. And yes, I know that often people like me get to hear about the times we don't get it right, but I also recognise that more times than not, we absolutely get it right, and that is through the care, dedication and skill of our staff. But we also recognise that doing more of the same is not going to create a sustainable NHS and one that is going to continue to provide the care that it does. The Darzi report really foreshadowed what is going to be the 10-year plan, and with that there are 3 big shifts that have been described. They are from hospital care to the community, and many of you will have seen we're already starting to move in that direction, particularly with our virtual ward. And I was at an international conference just recently, and I didn't set them up for this, but as I sat there, I heard somebody describing the care that was happening in the NHS around virtual care, and called out that one of really the vanguards of that was the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. At that point in time, I did want to jump up and say, that's us, but I made sure I did that quietly later. From analogue to digital, and it's worth noting, and Liz has highlighted this, that we have now commenced our electronic patient record journey. and we have a very, very ambitious timeframe to go live in early 26, but this will connect us in a way that we just haven't had before. The third big shift is really around from sickness to wellness, with a greatest emphasis on prevention. This means that the research that's happening on this park, the work we're doing in really shifting our care out of the hospital, and it's not all care, but working much more closely with public health. We want to stop people getting sick and needing the care in the same way that they do now, and we'll be here for those people that we really add value to. None of that is new. They've been talked about for a long time, but hopefully this is that moment of change where they're going to happen at a greater pace and scale. However, when I do look back on the year that was, as I arrived at what I thought was the end of a very tough winter, even though it seemed to be cold for an awfully long time, I was warmly welcomed, and I continue to be. I do get out and about, as do my executive colleagues, and I've introduced a new word, a Japanese word called gemba. Gemba means the real place, because it's really important that the decisions we make are based on the fact that we know what impact that will have to our real world, which is that point of care. But I also knew, because in my lead up, don't think I was appointed and then went quiet and just arrived on a day. I met with Tom regularly. I met with Nick Hume, who, if you were here last year, Nick also presented. He was our interim chief executive, of exactly what was happening. And I knew that this organisation had made a really tough decision. That tough decision was to respond to the fact that delays to ambulance handovers at the Trust, holding up ambulances at our front door, had a knock-on effect to delays in the community. We all recognise that the most dangerous place to be is in the community. We're not too sure exactly what's happening to you, and you're not getting care and support. At every other delay in our system, particularly once you hit our doors, somebody is going to be caring for you, going to make sure that we can get in and rescue. But that meant that we needed to make some changes. We opened spaces to care for patients that we called escalation beds, and not all these beds were really beds where we'd want them to be. And I know people have heard about patients that were cared for in corridors. When I arrived, but it had already been called out, our staff were saying, as well as our patients, this wasn't the care we wanted to provide in the way we wanted to. And in challenge from our board, we set about a de-escalation plan. Now, I want to be really clear that that is not saying we will not have to do it from time to time, and we've had a few tough moments over the last couple of weeks where we have, but what we do see as normal is that we have systems of care and support around the staff and those patients, and that they stay in those escalated areas far less than what they have been. But it's part of the plan that we'll have for this winter to not make this normal. But that tough decision, and you'll hear a little bit about this later, meant that we are now consistently amongst the top performers in the country for meeting the 4-hour urgent emergency care standard. That means that we are keeping our community much safer than potentially they would have been. Executive changes, again, it's been quite a bit of change, and key members taken up opportunities elsewhere, and I do acknowledge the work done by our medical director, our former medical director Erica Denton, our former chief nurse Nancy Fontaine, and also Roy Clark, who hasn't actually left us, but he's on secondment in King's at London. And again, that's a recognition of the skills that we have amongst the executive, but also amongst the people that are able to step up into those roles. So we have set about stabilising the leadership, and recently we announced that Rachel Cocker was appointed as our chief nurse, which we were just so pleased about. Rachel knows this place really, really well, and it's important while there is change that we don't lose sight of the things that make us special and unique and that are important to our staff. And we do finalise the medical director role this week, so we are moving on that. During the year, we were also inspected by the CQC, and although the report took an awfully long time to come, it showed some areas where we're doing so well. There'd been an earlier inspection where we achieved a good rating for maternity services, and in the current environment and the requirements for maternity care, that is an outstanding effort, and we were ever so proud. They also called out exemplary practice in many of our areas, but particularly in diagnostic imaging. Overall, our rating remained as requires improvement in well-led and overall as a trust. And that was how we had earlier really assessed ourselves because we know we've got some way to go. But we also know that since that inspection was done in November last year, and they did say that in inspection, so much has changed, and they can see all of those signs that we can be the organisation that we need to. The slide loop behind me showcases not only some of the milestones we've achieved, but they're not to show an end point, but rather how these point us to the future. We opened the Norfolk Centre for Interventional Radiology. I wasn't here for that, but in fact I remember it was one of the very first places I went to, and I was blown away because it's some things that tertiary and quaternary hospitals really struggle to do in the way we do here. We've treated our 6,000th patient, but what this does allow us to do in looking to the future, it allows us to really realise our ambition about being a centre of excellence in our system in East Anglia in hyperacute stroke care, and to be a thrombectomy centre. And that ambition looks much closer now with some good news that we've had that can be realised. That is so important. It is life-changing for individuals across Norfolk and further around how they recover after a stroke. We're not very good at shouting out good things, and I suppose my fresh eyes mean I can see it. I didn't know before I got here that we developed and now lead the Imaging Academy for East of England. That is how we train people to be able to offer these cutting-edge treatments. It's amazing, and we're not shouting it from the rooftops, but we should be, because there are so many things that we do. I was here, however, for Jenny Lind 170 birthdays. There's Jenny there. We are the second oldest specialist paediatrics hospital in the country, second only to the Peter Pan Hospital of Great Ormond Street. And we also now, with announcements around Cambridge developing their paediatric services, not thinking they'll be in competition, but we're thinking about the strength working in partnership that will bring certainly to this part of England. Liz talked about the investment in NNUH, so our Norfolk and Norwich Orthopaedic Centre. We know that by opening those theatres, and it was a fantastic opening last week, we're going to be treating 2,500 additional orthopaedic patients a year. And that's important to us because the area that we have to continue to concentrate on is how do we deal and balance planned care with emergency care. The Community Diagnostic Centre, which is going to open in spring of 2025, I do like the way in the UK that we talk in seasons. It doesn't pin you down too much, but we're pretty sure that we will deliver that. We're going to be able to see 450 people a day. You know that if you are scheduled to have procedures, you need to have some diagnostics. This will be the third one. The other two have already opened at our other district general hospitals. In looking back but looking forward, I really do have to start to talk about research and education because we sit on an amazing research park. It is a real asset for our community, but for us as curious health academics, health researchers and healthcare providers. And I don't think we've quite reached our potential yet, but you'll hear of some amazing things which are really world leading. Some of you will know that I made a comment soon after arriving, and nobody's really pushed me back on this, that we didn't really feel like a university hospital. Now, some of that might have been the timing of exactly where we were at, because in fact we were coming out of winter. But in fact, what I wasn't seeing was a lot of translation, and that curiosity, evidence leads you. We want to be consistently research-driven, evidence-led, and operationally excellent in delivery. But this year, the board's committed to a greater focus and investment in research and education. We've established the very first board committee of research and education, and I have to say it has absolutely started to change the way we look. This gets us to rise above it and see the possibilities and make sure we're investing not only in the now but in the future. And so many of our services, you will see that research in action, particularly in our cancer services, but our neonatal services. But of course, since saying that we didn't feel like a university hospital, I now know a lot more about us. And I still think in part I'm right, but I can see where research, discovery and translation are driving that clinical care. Our relationship with the other research park partners and the university is really, really building as we look for ways to constantly collaborate and work for our collective strengths. Last week we held our autumn showcase, which was facilitated by our Director of Research, John Larty, And can I tell you, I had no idea of some of the things that we were doing. They are amazing, and we really want to be known. And we want our population, our patients, to know that when you come here, you are going to be offered to be part of clinical trials. You are going to get cutting-edge treatment, that you know that good research and evidence underpins everything that we do. So in finishing, I know that we have a lot to be proud of, but of course we recognise we've got a lot more to do. Tom's talked about the launch of where we are now and what we're concentrating on. We've called it our Best Care for Every Patient program because we want to use language that our staff already recognise, and also our patient. But there are some fundamental and foundational pieces we have to get right. And we could be chasing 100 things. And as I said, our staff are working really hard. But if we can't link them back to urgent care and flow, how do you move people through the system? It does seem that the hardest ramp to get off here is the one to get out of here. And we really want to work differently with our community to make that possible. Our elective care, far more to be done. But also, what are we going to do about our older population, particularly in the north of our county? We want to take a renewed look at frailty. How do we make sure that people with frailty do not need to come through this front door if in fact their front door is closer to something else? And Cromer Hospital is going to be, for us, the absolute linchpin for what we do. It is a wonderful facility. As many people know, it was the very first one I went to. That was what I did before I actually walked through this door. We're also going to be, of course, always keeping an eye on, do we add value? And that's really around getting our finances into a situation where we can continue to make those right investments. And the other foundation piece is the way we work with other partners, but particularly our acute partners, to try and bring some coherence into the way that we support each other. So I'm often wished good luck. When people ask me, what do I do? They go, oh, good luck with that. And many of you will probably hear me respond by saying, I don't need luck because I have so many good people around me. And that is something that I rely on. And in fact, it's the truth. We have amazing governors. We have a wonderful board. Our non-executives, they provide the challenge that we need, but they also provide the support and the advocacy for us. I do have a wonderful group of colleagues in the executive team, and I'm grateful for that every day. But especially what I'm grateful for are all of our staff, our amazing volunteers, and everybody that actually makes it happen for us. So now it gives me great pleasure, and I know you're going to get your own voiceover in a moment, to introduce Councillor Stuart Dark. He's Chairman of the Norfolk County Council, as Tom said, but he's a great supporter of volunteers, and particularly ours. And you'd like to say a few words and give a vote of thanks to our volunteers.
Welcome to Councillor Stuart Dark MBE.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I guess the first question that I'll try answering this afternoon is, who's he and what does he do? So every year, the 84 councillors for Norfolk elect one of their members to be their chair for that year. The downside of that role is that I then chair all of the democratic meetings in that chamber, a little bit like the Speaker in the House of Commons. The upside of the role is that I am the lead civic for our wonderful county, which covers 2,000 square miles, and that's an absolute privilege. I have a little bit of exposure to the hospital environment. I sit on the Health Overview Scrutiny Committee for Norfolk, so I understand some of the challenges and pressures that have been outlined in the previous speech. What I would start by saying this afternoon is, though, that hospitals are buildings. They're delivering their services to people, often scared people, often vulnerable people, but they do that through people. And that's the important thing here, the people. Now, I've been here often, officially, but also as a patient and with family and friends. And the staff in the room here, the board, the governors, collectively, you all do wonderful things every day. So the first thing I want to do this afternoon is thank you all, genuinely. However, I'm here this afternoon with a particular interest of mine in a special subset, your volunteers. Now, one of the benefits of being the County Council Chair is I'm allowed to elect a theme for my year to direct focus and resources on things that are important and often neglected. Now, our wonderful county has literally thousands of volunteers, making Norfolk brighter, better, kinder and more compassionate. These are often unassuming individuals, not motivated by money or plaudits, but simply people that come forward because they want to help. Now, sadly, we as a society do not say thank you frequently enough or loudly enough to that special group of people. Now, in June, shortly after declaring that interest of mine and the theme for the year, I was lucky enough to attend one of your volunteer events here in Volunteering Week. And I met some of your volunteers, ranging from drivers, befrienders, A&E and ward helpers, therapy dog handlers, welfare callers, the butterfly team, and hospital radio that's been going 50 years. Just to name a few. So I'm here formally at your AGM today to say to you that your 450 volunteers that you have, giving this hospital 3,000 hours a week of their time for free, are absolutely wonderful people. And that you know that, but we know that, the community that they help. We're in their debt. If you take one thing from my short speech today, please, in the AGM, can you please cascade out to every volunteer you see around the hospital in the coming days? Their work is noticed, it is appreciated wider, and we thank them for it. Thank you.
The next presentation is from Dr. Lindy Lee Fulsher, Johnny Wells, and Helen Atwell.
Just the right one, I should imagine.
Hello, everybody. We are part of the ED leadership team, and we have our service director, Emily, over there, who's been let off the hook and doesn't have to talk to you. And we're here to come and share with you real pride from a team that has worked really, really hard. Rachel's sitting here and she's smiling quietly, because actually the story we're here to tell about today was really seed sown under Rachel's leadership when she was responsible for the ED. It's a story of real challenge and trial, a department that was really, really in a ditch. CQC came to visit, initially said requires improvement, and then said, actually, we're really concerned. There was a Section 28A issued to say, actually, if you don't change something dramatically, there is real concern here for patient safety. And a leadership team at the time sought to really have the vision and say, how do we change this ship that just is clearly sinking? Under Rachel's leadership, and a whole lot of other people, they had a vision that something different was possible. And it's really difficult when you feel that you're failing to suddenly change direction and course and to maintain momentum and vision that we can do something different. But there was a round of recruitment and appointment, and actually the team at the NNN has changed the course of the ship that was sinking to a position now that I think we're all really proud of the emergency department at the NNN. We're by far not out of the woods. And every day is a challenge and every day is difficult. But these graphs show you what has been achieved by a fantastic team and an organization that has a will to do something differently. Our 4-hour performance, so most of you will know what are the measures of a successful emergency department, the 4-hour performance being the most publicised one. Our 4-hour performance was really just going down. We had more and more 4-hour breaches. We had our initial assessment, which is a marker of whether you're able to triage patients quickly enough to determine who really needs time for critical care. The time to initial assessment was rising. And we knew we had to do something different. There was a real energy. So recruitment focus meant that we had, I think, 8 consultants at some point. We now have a consultant body of 24 people. We had a team where no one wanted to join the NNN. We now have people queuing to say, we want to come and work for you. We were at risk of losing trainees. We now have trainees saying, Norwich is the place we want to come and train and work. And so we turned around. You can see our initial assessment time has dropped way down, and we're now, for the bulk of our patients, managing to hit the targets for assessment. We have turned out 4-hour performance targets to the point where we are possibly the best in the region for 4-hour performance. We were tasked with offloading ambulances because if any of you have, a year ago, drove past the car park outside A&E, it was a sea of yellow. We now still have a bit of yellow, but it's at least not a sea of yellow. The sea of yellow meant patients were waiting on the backs of ambulances for hours and hours, not able to get into the organisation. And we were able to turn that around with the energy that you see. Really, really proud of these things, but like all things in life, don't forget the unintended consequence. So part of being seen as being successful is somehow we attracted more business. So while we were able to perform better, we've also become busier. But against all odds, we've been able to mobilise as a team, and that is not our success. It is organisational success. And something we're really proud of. Really systematically trying to break down silos between teams within the organisation, having organisation recognise that urgent and emergency care is not an A&E problem. It is an organisational and a system problem, and it is only with the support of the entire organisation that any of this has been successful. We were placed on a Tier 2 special measures intensive support programme by NHS England, and midway this year where we removed from that because of the success that the organisation has achieved, which we're very, very proud about. And our friends and family score, look where it was, November 2022, and it's gone up and hasn't dropped again. We're really proud that we're able to give our service users a good experience, that now suddenly we are recommended as a place to come and get care. But all of this is really dependent on people. We know that it's the people within the machine that makes the wheels turn and that are essential to the success of the system.
I'm going to take over from here. So the background of this is that we all need is a team. And when we actually started, we had 30% vacancies in nursing and a high turnover. Staff weren't happy, they were stressed. So we focused heavily on recruitment, but more importantly, we tried to marry that in with actually the retention and making the team feel valued. Now, why do staff want to come and work in an ED department? If you want to be a nurse in ED, it's a passion, and the job is actually really rewarding, but you do need intensive support and training. As you saw from the original slide, there's so many varied presentations. You need a really strong and developed workforce, and that's through sort of like development days, team days, specialist training, and that all takes time, and you need to, and what we didn't have when you got 30% vacancies forever, we were cancelling study days. So we made a commitment very early on to never cancel study and just build on the team. We were lucky enough to have film crew for a couple of years for 2 series. They gave us some extra money for the privilege of having them on board. We've invested that in sort of like team building initiatives, subsidising summer balls and Christmas balls, and building on morale. Now you can see from the staff survey, we have from the 22 to the 23. It's a miraculous change, you know, with the morale is 22% improvement, you know, engaged. The team feel happy and supported. We put a lot of effort into sort of giving them sort of the time and the well-being initiatives they want. So we talked about study days. We really need to, this is a journey, but we're trying to build the team morale between the professions as well. So we have a huddle for the seniors every day, regularly every 3 hours, to see where we're going. But we're sort of like, we're building that into the distinct areas, so the doctors and the HCAs and the nurses can actually get together, and actually, because it's the team changes daily, or the components of it, so it's actually making sure we know who they are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their name is, and so like, and what the challenges are, who the sort of the patients they're worried about. So we call these the sub huddles, and we're building on that, and that's sort of like breaking down some barriers between the professions. We had our first ever Band 7 team that I'm particularly proud of. We had it off-site. We managed to get every single Band 7 in a room for the first time for many years, so we can sort of like share a sort of like a vision between us. We have our wellbeing come in regularly to see us. Lindy Lee is great at organising cake days and sort of like international food days. We have the Eddies, which we're very proud of. The actual trophies are terrific. Staff are really proud to actually win them. We've got the Christmas ball coming up, so tickets are on sale now if you want to join us. We open it up to everybody in the ED department, and we sort of like quite proud to get some volunteers there so they can keep an eye on us. And of course to the barbecues and the other sort of like support we get from the wellbeing teams. Which one was it? Good. There's some nice pictures of all the things we're doing. So there are Lindy Lee and Emily in the sort of Christmas jumpers from last year. The paddle boarding, we've got a resident artist in there. That was a collaboration event for sort of like the emergency nursing day, and sort of then the summer ball was passing. Okay, and this was our picture from the. Quite pleased with this one, trying to get everybody in the same room looking towards each other. So it took 20 minutes, but as you can see, sort of like a great turnout for our summer ball this year. So, but underpinning that, so the Trust has been really supportive in making sure that we're all aligned. So Emily, myself and Victoria, who's not here today, unfortunately, because she's studying in London, we've done the Connected Leaders programme, so we're all sort of on the same page in which direction we're going to go to. We've got a very strong sort of like nursing leadership team there, sort of like we've all been in post now, and I think it's the first time for a while that we've actually had 3 years of stability, and we're all sort of in a common agreement, and we've backed that up. We've all done our senior licence to lead, so we're actually sort of like academically all on the same page as well. About this one?
I can talk about this one. So the education within the emergency department is absolutely amazing. We have an education team who prides themselves for excellence. In the top left-hand corner there, it shows that the emergency nursing mandatory training is above 95%, and the nursing team within the emergency department, the ALS, the Advanced Life Support, there's 57% of nurses have actually undertaken that, and normally you'd be looking at below 20, so that's a really good accolade, really. We're trying to mature our workforce to ensure that we have got people in the department who are educated, who have the awareness, who don't feel left out. We ensure that education is for all bands. So if anyone has got any key interests, we try to ensure that we support them in those. We've also started induction videos for bank, agency and new starters within the department to do virtual tours and speeches which they have before they start, which is really, really beneficial. And also on the beat, the emergency department education team has gone live on the beat for new starters, ensuring that there's information, training days and competencies in there as well. Yeah.
And on Leslie's point, I think Leslie's observation about the sense that this wasn't an academic hospital There's probably some truth in that, and I think what sits behind that is when you become so engrossed in the day-to-day service provision and service delivery, it's easy to get a bit lost in what the bigger picture is for your organisation. And research in particular was something, when we joined, this is supposed to be a teaching department, a teaching hospital, but we're spending our day just so engrossed in trying to fight fires and keep the wheels turning. And we're really proud that probably 7 months ago, we've invested into putting money into research. We now have some PAs allocated to a research lead for the department. We are enrolled in 5 studies that we're actively recruiting for. And I think a few weeks ago, we were one of the top recruiters for one of the studies. Again, something we're really, really proud of. And so definitely not out of the woods. Life isn't easy. So all the success we're proud of doesn't go without sleepless nights and doesn't go with, last week I was slightly sad. We had 25 ambulances in the car park. So you kind of feel, one step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but ever moving forward, ever committed to ongoing improvement and ongoing will to get the job well and keep our patients safe. So as an organisation, I hope you share with us the pride in the emergency department, what has been achieved by a really fantastic team. Thank you.
The next presentation is from Professor Sheikh and his team.
Hello, good evening. My name is Anna Wordley. I'm the lead specialist nurse in the bowel cancer screening programme. We're based over in the Quadram Institute, and I'm going to give a sort of an overview of the bowel cancer screening programme, and then we were going to present a case study just to show how somebody that came through that programme then moved into what we call the symptomatic service, Professor Sheikh's team. So we were the first screening, it was the first screening for men and women nationally, and it started to be rolled out from 2006, and we were one of the first implementers of that rollout, so we're really proud of that. In 2023, there were nearly 140,000 invitations in Norfolk for our group, for our patients, and we have a really high uptake. We have we have over 70% of people who are invited to participate in the programme take it up, so that's fantastic. About just under 2%, so just under 2 in every 100 people who take part in that, who do the fit kit and who send that back to the hub, which is in Nottingham, will have a positive test. And that test means that further tests are required. So we have one of the 20% most deprived areas in our area in England, and unfortunately the uptake for them is 52% with a 2.2% positive. Oh, okay. No, I don't think I've got to that one yet. How do I? Okay. So there's work to be done around, trying to get that particular group and area to participate, because we know that's so important. So it's now obviously the whole of the UK it's rolled out to, and we are gradually, it's basically everybody that's registered with a GP can participate, and in England from next year, so from March next year, it will be for the age group 50 to 74-year-olds. So every 2 years, people are invited to take part. And then if it's positive, the hub who are in Nottingham will make an appointment with one of our screening practitioners. And we knew now, since COVID, we do those telephone assessments rather than face-to-face. It used to be that we went out to King's Lynn and out to the James Paget Hospital to do face-to-face assessments to suitability for colonoscopy. But since COVID, we're doing it in-house. Everybody stays here to do that on the telephone. And we did do a survey of our patient group just to see if that worked for them. Occasionally people will say they would prefer to come and have a face-to-face appointment, and occasionally there are people who we really, for a safety point of view, need to see face-to-face to make sure that they are suitable to go forward. In terms of the attending for a colonoscopy, this is done by additionally accredited colonoscopists. So these are extremely experienced, both medical and nursing endoscopists who have to go through additional accreditation. We have Dr. Brett, who is our interim medical director, who's one of our screening colonoscopists. Professor Sheikh is another one, but we have 9 at the moment, and there's another 4 in the pipeline. So they have to take a multi-choice questionnaire and a test before they can actually go forward to another hospital to be tested really and accredited by another team. There's quite a lot to go for. So I've just put this slide up just to show that obviously we're part of the East of England. There are 9 centres in the East of England, and Norfolk, obviously we make up just around about a population of 1 million. And the team is made up of me as the lead specialist screening practitioner, the programme manager, our clinical lead is Dr. Tai, and then we have nurses who have to go on and do additional accreditation as well. So they all have to undertake an academic course within the first year of working in the team. We also have radiologists and histopathologists who have done additional accreditation in order to report on scans and to look at the histopathology that goes to the pathology department. Since June of last year, we have been inviting people who have Lynch syndrome to participate in this. And these are people who have a genetic predisposition to developing polyps. Either they've inherited that or they've acquired it on their own, because the bowel cancer screening program is seen as sort of an excellent service for them. So this is me and some of my team, and this was taken, talking about research, we are very research active. So every single person that comes through bowel cancer screening who is going to go on and have a colonoscopy, they are invited to take part in the early detection of colorectal cancer study, which means that they consent to give some blood on the day that they attend for colonoscopy, and pretty much all of them wanted to participate in that. So we're really, really pleased with that. We also, this particular picture was taken because we are the highest recruiter in the UK for the Colo Prevent study. So this is a study where people who are found to have high-risk polyps, so either a lot of polyps or big polyps, who we need to see again in 3 years' time. If they're interested, they can be recruited to the Colo Prevent study, where they can have metformin and aspirin with a view to actually reducing the number of polyps potentially to be developed. I think listening to Elaine and Chris earlier talking about high quality of care and patient voice, every single person that participates in this programme is sent a 30-day questionnaire, so everybody has an opportunity to feedback. And the feedback is generally really, really, really good. So in 2023, we did 1,800 tests. We found 90 cancers, and about 350 people had high-risk polyps. So cecal intubation rate is something that's seen as a real quality marker, which is how many times we get all the way around the colon. And in our programme, it's 96%, which is really high. And again, the numbers of polyps that are detected is 56%. So we're picking up a lot of early cancers and many, many polyps, which we remove. And then they're not there to go on to become cancer if they were going to do that. So generally, it's really well received. So this particular case study is of, we were just doing one, weren't we? A 59-year-old male who came, I'll call him Mr. Jones. So he actually took part in the bowel cancer screening programme in 2021, and he had a normal fit test. And the letter that goes out to people when they have a normal fit test is, this doesn't necessarily exclude problems. So if you have symptoms, we still always encourage people to go to their GP and be referred in for additional testing. So on the 27th of October, he sent, the fit kit was sent from the hub, and then it was received on the 7th. So an appointment went out to him the next day for the 14th. So there was only 7 days between that positive test and his first appointment. So he was assessed as having, he'd had heart attacks in the past, he also had diabetes, so he wasn't without a complex past medical history. Interestingly, he'd actually had the kind of the symptoms that we see a lot when people have bowel cancer, which is a change in bowel habit and rectal bleeding. And he had actually been referred himself to the Spire. He'd been assessed, he'd been offered a colonoscopy, and then things settled, so he declined that. And that was a year before he came to us. So he, wrong way, sorry. So I'm sure some of you may well have had a colonoscopy, but for those who haven't, it's really the gold standard test to look around the bowel, because it allows us to look very carefully at the lining of the bowel. It allows us to take photographs, biopsies, and remove polyps. And you can see down in the bottom right-hand corner, the picture there is showing how that polyp would be removed. And the bottom left-hand side, those are the sorts of views that we get. So you can see that the tube goes in through the bottom and literally all the way around the colon to the right-hand side to the cecum. And that is a complete colonoscopy. And this particular gentleman was found to have a polyp on a stalk in his sigmoid colon. Have I got a pointer? I don't know if I have. But, so just where it says colonoscope, just there, that's the sigmoid colon. And so that would have been removed on the day. But at the same time, he was found to have a rectal cancer. So that cancer was found right down into the rectum. On the day, the nurses, so in endoscopy, you'd have a nurse that would be assisting the endoscopist, you'd have a nurse that would be sitting with the person while they were having the procedure. And in the bowel cancer screening programme, we have one of our nurses that are obviously there to take, to input all of the data that we have to put onto the national database, as well as supporting the patient. And sometimes we can take off as many as 20, 30 polyps on a sitting, so they can be quite busy there. But following the procedure, then the patient would have been seen with his significant other if he came with somebody else, and I believe he came with his wife. And the endoscopist explained, what the findings were with the nurse with him, and then scans were arranged. So the top left-hand side is to show the CT scanner and the MRI scanner that would have looked to exclude any spread of the cancer cells to other parts of the body, and also an MRI scan to look at the envelope around the rectum to see if surgery would be the first treatment that would be advised. Then once all of that is ready, once the histology is back, the patient would be discussed at the multidisciplinary team meeting. So that's really, the surgeons, the nurses, the radiologists, oncologists, all the ologists, and really looking at all of the information and really coming up with a plan so that when the patient then comes to clinic, we've got all of the options available to discuss. And obviously the patient came to see Professor Sheikh.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Anne. So, first of all, thank you for this kind invitation, and just I promise you I'm going to leave a few slides, and I might get it away with my passion, but I've been asked to limit it for 6 or 7 slides, which I've done that. Right, so, and I'll just straight away go on to the topic. As Anna mentioned, we are one of the busiest screening centers in the country, and for a single hospital and a single MDT, we diagnose and perform highest number of bowel cancer operations in the United Kingdom. Not sure about Scotland, but certainly in England and Wales, we do highest number of bowel cancer operations for a single MDT. There are a few hospitals like Leeds and Gloucestershire. They've got 2 or 3 hospitals together. They may be slightly higher than us. For a single hospital, we are highest. And as a result, we have got wealth and volumes of experience. And especially for rectal cancers, like Mr. Jones, Anna mentioned, it's almost a requirement for NICE guidelines. You offer them what we call minimal invasive operation. In past, they used to have big open cut, but pretty much all of them, since 2002 or 3, we offer them what we call laparoscopic operation. But laparoscopic operation is not without its problem. So I was appointed in this hospital in 2014 as a consultant. I've done quite a few laparoscopic operations. And just to show an example, if you see on the left-hand side how my assistants are holding the camera. And again, it's not good for their joints, and especially for pelvic operations. Some of these operations can be almost 5-6 hours or 8 hours. And in that position, it's not good for the surgeon. If the surgeons are tired, effectively they are likely to do, I wouldn't say mistakes, but you can slow down the operations, and it's not good for patient's outcome either. So if you look at the middle picture, when you perform with the robot is attached to the patient's cart, and the surgeons are sitting on a console. There are two consoles. One is the assistant surgeon and the main surgeon. On the bedside, oftentimes we have what we call well-trained practitioners, surgical care practitioners. So we have got 5 of them in this hospital. And so now, just to give an example, how I'm sorry, this some people may not like these videos, but just to show you. So if you look at that picture, that's a laparoscopic picture. You can see that the camera is not pretty stable. There's lots of movements are happening. But many people would call that as a very good operation laparoscopically, but there's lots of movements, and depends on how much coffee the surgeon had on that morning. So, but if you look at the next picture, that's a robotic operation. Just compare left side and see that it's a quite stable camera. You can see single fibers. That's the rectal dissection. And rectum is a very busy organ in pelvis, surrounded by important structures like ureters, nerves, which goes to bladder, important for their quality of life, bladder function, sexual functions. All those things can be well preserved with this high, precise, high definition operation. That's the robot. That's the robot gives you that platform. So, and now coming back to our patient in question, that's not his real name, but we call him Mr. Jones. So he had his robotic operation, and you can see that this myself and my trainee performing is a robotic fellow. So we are just cutting single fibers. There is a high, precise dissection. As a result, the tissue trauma is very less. And because the tissue trauma is less, they need less painkillers, less anesthesia, and much more faster recovery. So I'll come back to the recovery side of things. And so this is a colonoscopic picture where the cancer was diagnosed. On the right side, the MRI scan. And on the bottom also, you can see that's the real-time pelvic dissection of that particular patient. So can you see that? I'm able to cut single fibers there. So you can imagine the amount of trauma you given to the body and in terms of the recovery. So now this is another example. Can you stop that video for a second, or the next one? The middle one, I just want to stop for a second. Just want to talk through. Next slide, please. Next one. Yeah, the middle video, can you stop it? No. Okay, that's fine. So now, that particular patient, after any rectal operations, is almost national and international data says that their hospital stays anywhere from 5 to 7 days. Average is about 5 days. And when we introduced robotic program in this hospital back in 2016, we were one of the first hospitals to perform cancer operations with a robot in East Anglia. And in those days, we did not have access to robot because it's primarily used by urology, because it was a nice recommendation to perform prostates, and we were busy. So I started using them on a Saturday, and Rachel sitting in front of me laughing at me, she supported enormously. Thank you to provide the team on a Saturdays. We did for 2 years. Whenever I don't have a team, I used to go to Rachel and she would make it happen. So thank you. So we did that for 2 years, and then we managed to acquire a new robot for ourselves for multi-speciality. So, but that working on a Saturday actually given as a massive advantage to us. The reason is when I operate on a Saturday, when I actually come back and see them on a Monday, they were actually quite fit and ready, so I could discharge them. So as a result, I was already seeing quite early results of 48 hours discharge. And that went on for 3-4 years. And then when we get increasing confidence with help of new robot, we acquired a new system, fourth generation in 2020. We were not able to celebrate because of COVID, but we quietly started the program. And we were able to then discharge these patients in 24 hours, meaning one night stay only. As far as I know, it doesn't happen anywhere in the country. And few centers in America, they do it. This is primarily possible because you're performing high quality robotic operation. And then we've got support of virtual ward, which can talk about it later. And we were able to discharge. But we are not discharging like without, it's proper evidence base. We have got follow protocol programs. And I think robot is one of the part of that, providing that initial platform, less trauma, less insult, less anesthesia, faster recovery. So we have recruited 20 patients. Of those, 15 we were successfully discharged, meaning the another 5 were discharged after a couple of days. Like if they were not mentally prepared, if they don't have support, we don't discharge them. We recruit them, we ask them next day morning, are you ready to go home? Are you feeling happy? If they're ready, they just go home. So, and that's another example. This lady has given permission for this photography. I just want to ask you a question. The middle picture, can anybody say she had almost 6-hour operation, and I'm taking that video after how much time? Anybody, any guesses? So can you play that video, please? Yeah. After how many? 6 hours. If I say about 3 hours, would you believe it? That's 3 hours. And she had almost 6 hours worth of big rectal cancer operation. And to be honest, I was surprised myself. I have never done this before. I went, honestly, you have to take my word for this. I went upstairs and I asked her, look, do you want to get up and walk? I just turned it where she was already out walking actually. And my assistant Dolly sitting in there, do you agree? Then she said, quickly take a picture, quickly take a picture. So then I took her permission to take a picture. So that's what happened. And I think this is because, of course, lots of team effort happens, but the robot provides that platform to do this and perform these operations. And this is the second sort of side of the story is like complex operations. This is a super complex operation, takes about 10 to 12 hours, and hospital stays about anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. This is called pelvic excision, where we remove rectum, we remove bladder, prostate all together. And then you reconstruct with the plastic surgeons. So we are able to provide that surgery with a robot in this hospital. Again, not many people provide that. That's number one. But more importantly, I'm going to just draw your attention to the plastic surgeon who's sitting between the legs there, just creating the flaps. When the robot is actually using for the abdominal part of the operation, our plastic surgeons already start creating the flaps. This is called synchronized operations, and it doesn't happen anywhere in the country as well. So we're able to provide that with our plastic surgeons. And we already published that data. And so we have got some international collaborations. We provide patients on international research basis. Thanks to our level 4 management team, they have given us a second console. We're able to train our surgeons. That's on the right-hand side. That's the second console. It's like almost you got a driving license. So you got a second brake and clutch for control. It's exactly like that. So I'm training my colleague there. But if they're struggling with something not right, within a flick of button, I can just take control and just carry on. So and then we got training program. These are all trainees being trained. So yeah, and that's that. So I hope it's okay. Thank you.
I hope you get a sense of the passion, and the energy, and commitment from people like Irshad, from Lindy Lee and so on. It's just absolutely fantastic. When I spoke to Irshad a couple of days ago, preparing for today, he was hell bent on speaking for about 8 hours. I said, "It's too much, Irshad, too much." Right? So thank you for holding back, but absolutely brilliant. Right, I think we're out to the Q&A session. Is that right? Yeah. So if I can invite the executive team, please, to come up to the stage. Just grab a seat. There are some roving microphones.
Next, we have a question and answer session with the executive team.
Right, so to answer any question at all, feel free to go. So, this gentleman, first of all, if you can say who you are, that'd be great, please, and then we've got some microphones. We'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just before I ask the question, I want to thank you and your executive team and indeed the governors for all you do for looking after our health here in Norfolk. You made reference in one of the slides to digital infrastructure, and I'm just wondering, does that include work on AI? Are you going to embrace it, and do your consulting teams embrace it, or are they for or against it, or do you see a bright future for it?
Ed, you want to respond? Thank you. Respond to Ed.
Thanks very much. I'm Ed Prosser-Snellinger. I'm the Chief Digital Information Officer for the Trust. Thank you very much for the question. So I think when I went down to the National Healthcare Conference for Digital last week to represent the Trust and some of the things we're doing, everybody is selling AI at the moment. It's everywhere you look, and everybody wants to know how we're going to engage AI in healthcare. I think there are a number of things around that. I think the first one is, in order to do big data, we need the small data, and we need our data to be on a solid platform. So the electronic patient record gives us structured clinical data for the first time that we'll be able to then give to clinicians and allow them to leverage that. We then need the data architecture to be able to do that, and some of the investments we've made, such as the data center that you can see that we built here on the site, as well as our investment in cloud-based infrastructure, allows us to do that. And then I think, finally, we need to be able to assure patients and our staff that we're appropriately handing off decisions to AI. And one of the big things that we've done is built up an artificial intelligence management oversight group, which looks at how do we make sure that the decisions we're making with AI are clinically safe. And we are running a number of clinical trials at the moment in a research context, particularly in radiology, to look at that, as well as looking at the sort of the everyday things. I think the places where you'll see AI come in sort of immediately will be in just making your everyday life easier. And once we have those secure environments, automatic generation of discharge summaries of clinical notes, automatic generation of letters, those kind of things, that's what we can expect to see earlier. With the larger changes coming later on in the journey, but it's certainly something which we're looking to build on in the future.
And just on the digital equipment, I think you said you buy or lease some of it. I mean, why do you lease it? Is it more cheaper?
So we have a variety of ways in which we access some digital equipment. We own a lot of it's on a life cycle, so we'll buy it and it'll be on a 3 to 5 year life cycle for the elements we have. We do lease some elements which are complex, which fits either a commercial or a specific framework that we're using.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, back. Hello.
Thank you so much. I'm Deborah. This might be minorly off topic, but I'm just thinking about, particularly with Guy's and St Thomas's and the recent issues they've had with cybersecurity. I know that they're releasing some reports on their sort of what they've learned in terms of security. What's in place to ensure that we can actually learn from those and make sure that the NNN stays as safe as it can be and that we prevent what is preventable?
Thank you, Deborah. I can assure you it's a topic for a regular conversation at our board. But Ed, back to you again, I think, to cover this one.
Yes, thank you. And it's not off topic at all. Cybersecurity has to be at the absolute top of our agenda. If you go onto the dark web, but some of you may not even believe the dark web's a thing, but I assure you it is. If you want to buy someone's financial data, you can buy credit card data from very nefarious sources quite cheaply, maybe £1 for someone's credit card number, but it's £300 for someone's health record. So it's enormously attractive for cyber criminals to attack healthcare institutions. We conform to a number of national standards, so our security works on, we provide assurance to the board in that way. We also have local cybersecurity groups, and we certainly learn lessons from other cyber attacks as well. The amount of attacks that we receive as a hospital is significant. We have around 100,000 attempts a month on our email system where we're being sent that volume of spam emails attempted with phishing attempts, and we have more serious cyber attacks as well, which we have to defend against. But it's a very, very real situation, and it's a constant cat and mouse game working against sometimes large state actors who are just looking to conduct espionage against us, but also against criminals who are attempting to access and sell our patients' data. And we provide robust defences against those.
Thank you. A very, very apt question. Yes, at the back there. Thank you.
I wonder if I could ask about the interface between the patient record within the hospital with both primary care and community care, and possibly in the future with social care.
Okay, seems to be the Ed show today. Thank you for the question. Ed.
Thanks. I planted a number of questions today, Tom, yeah. So thank you very much. It's a really good question. So at the moment, we don't have a digital healthcare record which covers everything, but we haven't been idle in our collaboration with the system. We have a shared care record, which is a read-only record, which currently has primary care, community care, mental health and social care data, which is live for all of those providers within the system, and they can all access that in a read-only way. That's been quite transformative, especially for some of our front door services and our acute services in the way that they can access it, and also the other way for GPs and community cares and also the mental health sector to be able to access more of our data. Obviously, when our EPR goes live on the 26th of March 2026, we will have a lot more capability to upload more meaningful data, make that available. And I'm aware that the interoperability with primary care is a big question around that, and that is really something which is at the forefront of our programme and development.
Great, thank you. I've got a related question actually that came in earlier on. So what practical measures can you envisage being implemented to improve the discharge of patients to social care? Is that maybe one for you, Chris?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah. So I'm Chris Cobb. I'm the Chief Operation Officer, and we've heard today, and we've heard this many times before, that often it feels in this hospital the most difficult step to take is the one that patients have to take to leave our care and transfer to either their usual place of residence or care in the community. Probably as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, that transaction was quite a difficult thing to do between us and community care providers and care homes, etc., because the relationships were perhaps not as strong and as well structured as they could be. At our worst point after COVID, we had 250 patients in this building every day who had no reason to reside in this hospital. Not for anybody's fault, but just because the capacity didn't exist in the right volumes, in the right places, to make sure that that transformation of care could happen in a timely fashion to everybody's satisfaction. Over the last 12 to 18 months, it's really pleasing to see that what's happened in the community is that number of 250 is reduced to about 130. We have an ambition as a hospital to get that number down in partnership with community colleagues to around about 80 patients each day. If we can get to a number of 80, that facilitates flow through the hospital and helps our colleagues in ED not have to cope with an ambulance queue out front, because we've got a very congested hospital behind them. 2 years ago, we, as a system, were the lucky recipients of some external funding, which was around about 40 million, which went out into the community. We recognised that money was not going to be well spent in an acute hospital. It was better to provide community capacity. Some of that's in place, but the big step of a 40-plus bedded unit at the Willow Centre out in the community to take some of our more complicated pathway patients is still in front of us, and we're really all hoping that that's in place for December to help support this coming winter. Alongside that, I think we would all recognise that internally some of our processes have often been clunky, and we haven't had the right processes to support what we need to do on a daily basis. And some of my clinical colleagues here have been quite instrumental in speeding that up and making sure that what we've got is a really slick internal process. And even Leslie has participated in the long stay patient reviews, which again have still got some way to go before we'd be really happy. But the last thing I'd say on it is we last Friday received nationally the letter of what every trust needs to do to prepare for winter or second half of this year. And a big chunk of that for us is what do we do with community partners and for ourselves to make sure that that discharge process is as good as it could be.
Great, thank you, Chris. And yes, Elaine? No? Of course you can, of course you can.
First of all, actually, thanks so much. Many congratulations to the ED team and to the colorectal team. This is amazing stuff, and actually as a patient or a prospective patient or whatever, I am just so confident that you will take care of me, and that's what it's all about. But to the ED team, I'd just like to ask, how is learning shared across the organisation? Because there will be other departments who have retention issues. So how's the learning shared across with other areas. And just to give you the heads up, it's just the colorectal guys. I just wondered whether there was a difference in prognostic outcomes between robotic surgery and normal surgery. Thanks.
Do you want to take the microphone up to Lindy Lee? Thank you. Or whoever. Great, thanks.
We had a surgical away day, and that was just the surgical division. So ED falls under the surgical division in the trust, where we were able to share ideas, and particularly around staff retention and how we build teams and using the positive learning. And I'm pleased to say we shared our ED's ideas with them. So we're really, this is a wider team effort. And you're right. I mean, sharing with the team medicine is probably also quite integral, but we have already started sharing learning with the surgical division from the success achieved.
Thank you. Can we get a microphone to Urshad, please? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. So when you ask prognostic outcomes, there are two ways to look at it. One is something called oncological outcomes, meaning how they are behaving in terms of the cancer point of view, and another is quality of life. With regard to robotic surgery, because it's something new in the last 10 years, we always tend to compare with laparoscopic surgery. Certainly, it's no difference prognosis compared to laparoscopic surgery, but however, with a newer technology, something called, there's artificial intelligence enhanced staplers available, and artificial intelligence enhanced data from the robot. Certainly in our hands, and certainly my data is much, much better than my own laparoscopic surgery. 100% sure. Yes, there's almost 400 of patients worth of data is there to back this up. But nationally, we just need another 5-10 years to compare that cancer point of view. But more importantly, we must not forget something called cancer survivorship. What does that mean is, after the cancer, how's their quality of life? And that's where robot comes into picture. As I mentioned to you earlier, with regards to rectal cancers, rectum is a busy organ in pelvis, and there's lots of structures which impacts a patient's quality of life apart from rectum. And all those things are well preserved, well managed with a rectal surgery. And that's from cancer point of view, but there is lots of benign operations. For example, I'm sure Mr. Processing will back this up. He's an endometriosis surgeon. This morning we are talking about that. We can see already an improvement in quality of life with endometriosis surgery as well. So the precision you get. So.
Great, thank you, Rashad. Yes, Chris. Microphone this way, here it comes.
Thank you. Rashad, do you think, can you foresee a situation in the near future when your job will become redundant because of the robots, or do you think you'll be okay till retirement age?
I already thought about it. So with regards to robots, currently it is called automation. So when it's come to automation, like automatic driving, automatic cars, so it's from level 1 to 5. The 5 being completely autonomous. 1 is like cruise control is level 1. Like when you're driving the car, you put cruise control, that's level 1. So we're not quite there with even level 1, level 2 with the robot. It's still we do the operation, but there is some artificial intelligence enhanced staplers are available, which is perhaps level 1, level 2 sort of thing. So therefore, I think another 20, 30 years down the line, it is possible, it can be up to level 3 where quite sort of simple task will be automated with a robot. I'm involved in that project. I've got the data of, because I record all my operations, I've got already data, I'm working on it, so how we can make it better. Coming back to my own job, there will always be emergency operations, which cannot be done with robots. I'll be with the job for next year.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for the team? Sorry, if you go here first of all, I'll come back to you. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairly general question, I think. I've been a patient of the hospital for about 20 years with various conditions. I was somewhat shocked recently with the health minister's statement saying that the health service is broken. How did you and how do you react to that now?
Thank you for that question. But Leslie,
thank you. He actually now adds another line to that because obviously, one of the things that doesn't help us is, if in fact we talk it down, because you've heard even today just about the amazing people that we have working here every day, but how important this is. So the Health Minister or the Secretary of State now says the NHS is broken but not beaten. And I think that's really important. We have to be able to think about the way we will work differently, the things that we do, and there's been a question or two around how do we connect with our community, with social care providers, because we do recognise that most people do not plan on spending a lot of time with us, and I mean that in a kind way, nor should they. But in fact, we need to be able to support care much further back. And so we do support the view that we have to go much more to prevention. You will see, and it's driven through our social care partners as well, but programs we have around cessation of smoking and different things like that. But I think it was almost a rally cry as well to say, come on, we're just using so much discretionary effort, and by that I mean discretionary effort of our staff. We ask them to do more and more every day. And I think he was urging us to work smarter, to think about how do you have better care with partners so that in fact there is no almost barriers to where people are actually provided that care. It is about the right care in the right place. I think for our staff, we recognise that for some of our staff, this isn't the greatest place every day to work. So we again need to make sure that we're connecting, engaging with our staff, because all of the best ideas around what needs to be done, they're already here in the organisation, but they're already here from the people we provide care to. So that patient voice, that feedback is really important to us, because this isn't mine, this isn't our trust, it's all of our trust because it's so important. But it's sometimes people say something and it then becomes rather infamous, doesn't it? But I think it was a cry to be different and to do something that is going to really start to add value to the NHS.
Great, thank you.
I was just wondering, just a quick one on sepsis. Just wondering, what is your record in identifying it quickly when patients arrive or whatever? Because if you don't...
Rachel,
well, it is actually, so it is an area of focus for us. So we've got, one of our quality priorities this year is to focus on sepsis to try and improve the outcomes. We've also introduced something else in follow-up to Martha's rule about being able to, this is both patients and relatives, as well as staff being able to seek an early intervention from our team to come and assess a patient if there's a problem. And some of that can be around sepsis. So there's lots of training going on. Relatively recently, we introduced an electronic system for doing our observations and flagging up early if someone scores a high score based on things like their pulse and blood pressure and temperature. So I don't have all the data immediately to hand, but I know we're monitoring it carefully, and we've got a significant project to try and make sure that we improve our performance in this important area for patient care. So it is a real focus for us. I don't know whether Rachel wants to add something further.
Thank you.
Yes, I will. So we also have our Recognise and Respond team, who were introduced, I'm thinking, about 4 years ago. So historically, we had a team who followed up our patients who left our intensive care and high dependency units and arrived on the wards to give that level of support of that transition from a very acute area with 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 nursing into a ward. We then looked at the expertise that within that team and developed the rapid response team. They are a team that works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They support our call for concern and our Martha's Rule work, and they are very quick to look at our data and analysis around our performance against our sepsis indicators, but also the wider patient experience and the confidence that brings, and the early detection of our deteriorating patient, because there is a number of indicators that can be picked up far more early, which is a good thing. Bernard's alluded to our digital system, so that human factor of calculating the ranges of scores, which then encourages us to act, gives us a more accurate. So.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Any more questions from the Teams site? Janice, do we know? Oh, wait, Deborah, any other questions came in from Teams? Right, Deborah?
I'm quite interested in Martha's Rule. I did speak to a few healthcare professionals outside who were within critical care who weren't aware of it or hadn't received training to do with it, which I found kind of interesting. My other question would be more on the patient side, that particularly with Martha's Rule, if it's sort of a pediatric issue, are family members who are, for example, visually impaired or dyslexic, are they able to understand and recognise that that's available for their child?
Rachel, you want to cover that, or Bernard?
So we've done an awful lot of promoting of this throughout the Trust. We've actually had, Leslie's brought it up in one of her talks, it's on the beat. We've got posters up, we've had it in internal comms, we've had it in emails. But despite that, it may be that not all staff are yet aware that it's there. The second thing, which might seem slightly odd in a way, but this is from a national position, we put ourselves forward as being one of the many pilot sites actually, to introduce it early. But because several teams, and I don't think not necessarily every hospital has got an advanced recognise and respond team as we have, but many teams have looked at that as a critical care outreach anyway, an earlier form of that for adult patients. So the adult patient part has been introduced first, but part of our project is looking at how we can then deliver that for paediatrics. So that's the pathway we're on. We are looking to introduce it for paediatrics in the relatively near future.
The other word that we use is call for concern. So you'll see the posters around for call for concern. That was the original project that we were involved in the year before Martha's Rule. So we've been able to use that data and that project information that we've had to recognise that. You raise actually a really important point around our visibility, and I mean that in terms of how do people know where those signs and cards or QR codes, we need to make those accessible. So I thank you for that, and we'll feed that back to the team.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I know that Liz, our interim chief financial officer, was terrified about getting a question on the accounting adjustments, so thankfully that hasn't arisen. Liz, you're okay? Right, okay, well with that, I think we're pretty much on time actually, so thank you very much for your question, and thank you to the executive team for your answers. I think we're on to the charity awards. Okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
Our final item will be a short video from the Norfolk and Norwich Hospitals charity.
Both Emma and myself have been under so many different clinics in the time. We just appreciate everything they do for us, don't we? I mean, that means such a lot when you're going through a sort of terrible situation. And it's just nice to think that we can give something back for when the next person needs it. We sell plants, craft, a little bit of bric-a-brac. We have toys, we've got dolls, knitted toys, we've got knitted cardigans, all brand new.
We grow plants. I grow succulents and alpines, and I help Mummy with all the other potting up. I do all her potting up for her.
I've got them in a small pot, and then you put them into bigger ones, don't you? We've sold a lot again this year, haven't we? They told me we'd been nominated, but didn't think for 1 minute we would win. So thank you everybody who supported us in that way as well, because that means such a lot to us.
As a group and a family, we've raised £14,000 over the last 6 years. I think that we've had some family tragedies, my father passing away and my wife had breast cancer. We just felt it was really important to try and do something else for other people who are going through similar or are going through similar things. So I think it's really important to give something back to the hospital and the community in which we live in. The family have been really great actually to get involved, and it's been good to pull together the family of all generations as they wanted to also give something back.
In this shop and little community of 32 volunteers, not only do people volunteer to work in it, it also, some people come in every day just to talk to somebody and perhaps have a look round, and then It's a recycling centre for the whole village. On a visit to the Norfolk and Norwich, I saw the Boudica appeal, which, as most of our volunteers are ladies, I thought this would be an excellent thing to contribute to. So we gave £15,000 for ladies who have had mastectomies to have a voucher to be able to go to Marks and Spencer's to be specially fitted for a bra. And we also gave another 10,000 to have a room decorated for the use of the mastectomy patients being while they're at the hospital.
We do what we can to raise money by providing as much cake as we can to different scenarios. So we have a lot of requests from the charity for cakes for specific events, maybe get-togethers, talks and things like that, which we're more than happy to help. One of the main things we like to do, which is kind of where it all started, was Christmas is a big one for us. So Christmas Day, we like to make sure that every staff member on site gets some cake, and all the children's wards, every child on the children's ward gets a cake on there and a card from us as well. You know, it pulls on the heartstrings to think when children are, you know, going to be in hospital on Christmas Day, certainly for me. So we make sure that we make it as nice as we can for them, and that the staff get a little bit of recognition for working when everyone else is, you know, at home enjoying their family time.
The school has had a long history with Jenny Lind, and I'm really glad that even in our day and age we're still carrying on our connection with it, because we found receipts of money that we have given to Jenny Lind over 100 years ago, so I'm really proud that we're a part of this community that has been donating.
So after busking at the forum, we went and we did a whole school carol service, and we went to Christchurch Hall and sang, and then afterwards we collected some money from the parents.
Our biggest event was Charities Day, where we raised over £1,000.
And it's like really fun when you get to raise money and you get to do different activities.
Go for it, it's a really fun thing to do.
It's definitely an accomplishment for our school, because like we've voted for this specific charity and then we've won an award that we didn't know we were actually going to get.
Can I just say a massive thank you to everybody who contributes towards the Norfolk and Norwich Hospitals charity. It does an absolutely wonderful job for our patients and for our staff. And a great example actually was the NNUH centre we referred to earlier on, the orthopaedic centre. The charity contributed £2 million towards equipment to go into that centre and make it fully operational with the very latest kit. So that was a fantastic job, only made possible by the efforts of everybody who contributes towards the charity. So huge thanks, and a wonderful video clip, so thank you for that. Right, that brings us to the end of the annual general meeting. I would just like to conclude with a couple of thank yous, well, more than a couple actually, if that's okay. First of all, to Councillor Stuart Dark, massive thank you for coming today and sharing your thoughts around particular volunteers. Hugely appreciated, thank you. The ED department team, Lindy Lee rather, Johnny and Helen, thank you for all that. Irshad had to go off with Anna, I know, but again, the efforts and the excitement they bring to what they do in whether it's ED or surgery or wherever, fantastic. I mentioned the charity. Big thanks to all the members of staff who supported the stalls outside. I'm not sure how many of you saw that, but throughout the whole afternoon, there's been a real buzz out there with lots and lots of people manning lots and lots of stalls. There was volunteers, there was third parties, there was staff members and so on. That takes a lot of effort and commitment, so thanks to them. And almost very last, big thank you to Janice and the comms team for organising the AGM so efficiently yet again. So well done, Janice and team, and the AV team. Thank you for that. And here we are. That's worth a beer. Thank you. And just to close, a big thank you to all of you for coming today, asking your questions, listening intently, and just supporting the hospital and the trust. So with that, we will close the AGM. Thank you.